What's up, guys? It's Tris, and today we're going to talk about something near and dear to me, my first pedal. But before we start, welcome to Work Wednesdays, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the like button and comment as much as you can. I'd love more ideas of stuff that you'd like to hear about. I've got a ton of experience in the music business, and I'd love to fill you guys in so that you can do these things on your own. So someone was nice enough to leave a comment and ask what my first pedal was and how I navigated the pedal world, and I'm glad that they asked that. It's a cool answer. There's two different categories I want to answer it with. One is my perspective as a pedal company co-owner, and one is my perspective as a guitar player and my first pedal in that world, my first pedal in the professional world of building them. And so without further ado, here we go. Welcome to Work Wednesday. So before we get started, I want to break down a quick list of the different types of pedals, just so it's a little bit easier as I'm talking about different pedals. You might have a better idea of the different effects that you can grab from. So basically there's four categories, and they are this: distortion, time-based effects, modulation, and envelope or filter effects. Pretty much all effects can be put under these four categories, so they're a good thing to keep in mind. I'm going to post a link down below of a cool website you can go that shows you the four categories and all the different effects that kind of fit underneath those categories. So now, moving on, my first pedal was given to me. So back in 1992, when I first started playing guitar, someone gave me a used DoD FX90. Which is a blue digital delay, and it was cool. I loved it. It was a very different sound. I wasn't used to delay. I didn't really know what it was, and so my first entry into the pedal world was kind of one that I got to explore in a very simple layout with 3 knobs. The next pedal was one that I asked my mom to purchase for me, and that was, again, I was 11 years old, so I asked mom to purchase it for me because I had no money. That was a Tube Screamer variant. So basically it's a pedal that was based off of the Tube Screamer, and it is called the Super Overdrive, or SD1, by Boss. My third pedal was actually a pedal that my father got me, which was a first for him since he didn't really support my musical endeavors. But it was a really cool one made by Boss called the Metal Zone H2. It was only about 2 years old, so it had just come out in the pedal world. It was fairly new. And if you haven't played one, they're super cool. They have a 4-band EQ. They're high gain, super. My fourth pedal was actually my first multi-effects unit. So it was the RP7 made by Digitech, and it had everything, which was a little too much for an 8th grader who was trying to figure out pedals and had only had 2 distortions and a delay. So the digital parameters that you could program stuff with was way beyond my recollection at that point, and I think I programmed maybe 2 or 3 different sounds, but they were a whole bunch of different sounds in each preset, and it just confused me more than it helped me, and I ended up selling it like a year later. About 2 years after that, after going back to my Metal Zone and kind of the familiar sounds, I picked up an RP12, and I understood a little bit more. I think I programmed a couple different settings, and then I got into the jazz side of playing music and decided to sell that as well, and pretty much went straight into an amp for a couple years. I think I owned a Rat, maybe a Wah, and other than that, it was pretty much just me and my amp for about half a decade until I was going to Berkeley. And at Berkeley, I did the music theater program, and we played Aida, and the other guitar player was a phenomenal player, and he had a multi-effects unit, and he had all the sounds dialed in, and even though he had share number 2, because he wasn't as good as me, in case you're watching, Sion, he sounded way better than me, and he played way better than me. He's amazing. So anyway, it made me go out and decide to get the same kind of thing, another multi-effects unit, and I ended up getting the TC Nova system, which is this one here, or here, over here. I'll put it over here. And it's a great multi-effects unit. It's analog for the most part, with 1 or 2 like digital things. The parameters are all digital. It's great. I learned how to program a ton of stuff in it. It does everything. It even does harmonization. It's a great bang for your buck, and game changer for me. I ended up playing that thing for 4 or 5 years through different amps, and I took it on tour to India and Europe, and it was just such a cool unit. I still have it somewhere. I have no clue where it is. But anyway, fast forward a little bit, where I met a young gentleman at Guitar Center who was making pedals, and I asked him to make a boost because I wanted to kind of cut through in the band and on solos, so that I could kind of jump out there. And he made me something that he called the Gravity Bomb, which is not the Gravity Bomb that it is today, but that was the introduction of Alex Giraldi and Jordan Collins, the other two owners of CopperSound, and myself. That's when I met them. We were all hanging out down at Guitar Center, and they were already kind of together doing stuff in Alex's garage. And then I joined in, and the three of us just kind of took off from there. And so now we'll get into the other category, which is the company, First Pedal, and how we navigate the pedal world. And that is a fun, interesting story too. I'll try and keep this one short, but here it goes. The three of us would hang out in the shop 4 or 5 days a week, and we would kind of come up with different ideas for pedal names and different ideas for pedals. And it started very simple in the beginning, with some pedals that don't exist anymore, and one that got rebranded and renamed, and that would be the Gravity Bomb. So the Gravity Bomb was actually the second pedal that we came out with, but we had already been doing it as what's called the Smoke Monster. And essentially it's a clean boost. Think of something similar to a micro amp, just a clean boost, which is basically in the distortion realm and makes your signal louder, but doesn't dirty or color your signal at all. So that's one of the first things we already had, but that was on our list. The first pedal that we actually came out with was a reverb. And the reason why is that year in 2015, well, we really wanted to come out with something that wasn't gain as our first official production line pedal. And everyone was really into reverbs, and we didn't do it because everyone was. We were too. We were caught up in the idea that reverbs just sounded cool, and no one had done them in a while. Shortly after that, we came out with Gravity Bomb, like we had talked about. And I had been playing one of Alex's pedals for a long while, called the Morning Glory by JHS. It's an amazing pedal. And I asked him, well, we started working on our own drive pedal, and I asked him what the circuit was, and he said that it was originally based off of a Marshall Blues Breaker. And so we listened to some blues breakers, and ultimately we really decided we wanted our next pedal to become a blues breaker, but our own take on it, similar to the way JHS did their own take on a blues breaker when they did the Morning Glory. So what we did is we took that and another pedal that I dearly loved, which was the Armida Zen Drive. The Zen Drive has a very cool feature of a voice knob on it, and it is a tube screamer at its core, but it has a great kind of mid-scoop voice knob. And so I talked to Alex about it and Jordan about it, and we all decided that putting that somewhere in the circuit would be really helpful for the circuit. So we gave it a shot, and it came out sounding great, and that became Foxcatcher. During that time, I was doing a lot of musicals, and a lot of those musicals called for tremolo and chorus, and we didn't have any tremolo and chorus pedals. So I kind of built myself a chorus based off of the small clone with knobs instead of switches to control rate and depth, and a volume knob so that I can control how much volume was coming out. That we named Polaris because we had an ATV in the garage that was called a Polaris, and so we named it after that, believe it or not. Ironically, that became our next big production line, so we then added a tone section to it and another depth knob, and Polaris was born. And it's got the original 3007 chip from the original small clone, and it's a great pedal. If you haven't tried it out, it's definitely one worth trying. And as I mentioned, at that same time, I had been playing tremolo a lot, and I had borrowed one of Alex's favorite companies, Strymon, and actually everybody loves Strymon in the company, but we love every company. They're all awesome. But Alex had a Strymon Flint, And it's a really cool reverb, but I think its sweet spot is the harmonic tremolo that's in it. And I fell in love with the sound of that harmonic tremolo. And so when we revisited the idea of doing a tremolo, we talked about one that we had designed years and years before called the Walking Trem, which had its own grit because it was transistor based, and the transistor kind of broke up a little bit as it drove signal through the circuit. And so it had a natural grit to it, and we really liked that, although it was a traditional tremolo, meaning that it just cut the sound and then released the sound and cut the sound and released the sound. But what I had fallen in love with because of the Flint was a harmonic tremolo, which basically cuts your highs and then cuts your lows and then cuts your highs and then cuts your lows, and you get two different signals dipping and getting louder like that. And so that has kind of a cool, I don't know, Rhodes/wah sound. It's a really cool sound. If you haven't heard harmonic trem, you have to. It's such a cool sound. And so I really pushed for that, and a lot of other people were pushing for traditional, and so we ended up doing both in Loma Prieta, which was our next release. And that's kind of the story to this point with CopperSound for what we're allowed to talk about. We do have a ton of releases coming out this year, and you'll see them first here on this channel. So do stick around, because there's lots and lots of cool stuff coming. And I know this sounded like a Functional Friday review, but there's no review here. This is just, again, Work Wednesday is about how to make it in the music business. And this is one of the avenues that, for me, is making it in the music business, and that is owning your own pedal company or gear company. And I think it's super cool to work with Jordan and Alex on it, and I'm so excited for the stuff that we do. We're three of the luckiest guys in the world, and all the other guys that are involved. Oliver we couldn't do a lot of stuff without him. So it's such a cool thing to be part of a pedal company like that. And anyway, so for Work Wednesday, that's kind of the history of me and pedals. Thank you for the question on the YouTube comment. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Please like the video. It helps me a lot. And comment, ask me questions, ask me to do videos. If you had something about the music industry that you wanted to know, whether it's legal stuff or it's anything, chances are I've probably come close to it or across it at this point in my life. So please ask questions about the music industry. I want to give all the information I have. That's the whole point of Work Wednesdays. And Thursdays are about theory, so stick around for that. And Fridays are about gear. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.